No, I'm not saying.
Oh, I was
Also, on my problem set,
Uh-huh.
it got kind of straight on consciousness, so I bolted the things I thought were most important.
All right. Let's start. So I'll make some announcements and about the first exam, and I will move on to the review of the last two lectures as well, and then I sort of made some flashcards for the midterm one, but then it's for you to review on your own thing, and then I'll review for the midterm with examples. Good. Right. Okay, yeah. So, first midterm, it's on Thursday. If you are not aware of it. and from my experience last year, it's gonna be fine, honestly. The level of difficulty is really similar to the last year's. Then the average was 90% last year, which means that it's not difficult. I mean, I'm not like putting so much high expectations or anything. You need to be listening or something like that. But I'm just letting you know this information to make sure to let you know that this first midterm is not that. It won't be too hard, to be honest. So that's to relieve you guys, not like pressure you guys in any ways. So just to get clear.
What if they were really smart?
I think they were. Yeah, yeah, the level of like, not like smartness or something, but the level of like being confused in the class was pretty similar. So
Okay.
like, yeah. So I would say it won't be too difficult. So, and then a lot of questions will be conceptual. So that means that you don't need to bring a calculator. So that's good. And also, a cheat sheet is allowed. It should be handwritten, letter size, and one-sided. You can write whatever you want, so that's fine. And then to make things a little bit fun, I'm having this cheat sheet contest where so basically it's about how beautifully like you can make a cheat sheet, basically. So basically, oh what? Okay. So I'll be the sole judge, and then it's based on my whim about in aesthetics about the cheat sheets. And then if you want to enter a contest, then you can just simply like submit the cheat sheet with your examples. Right? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
color palette posing?
Okay.
Like,
It really depends on the weather. So, mostly like, uh, mostly black, I guess, and or blue or yeah, maybe kind of like that. Oh, what? Yeah. So and then the winner gets the either a Starbucks gift card or you can choose like to have 1 hour discussion session where it can be a straight up healing session or it can be a research consulting session. If you have any research consulting research issues and whatnot, and I can help you with that. I actually I mean this is for the winner, but I in the in the last winter break I did this like help the dissertator with stats, but also with like research designs in general and stuff like that. So it won't be my first time, but I'm not saying that I'm the master of like research or something, but I think it can be helpful. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So basically like 1 hour discussion session can be chosen as a prize, but there's also an option of like Starbucks gift card or any like gift card that that is worth your money, I guess. Yeah.
I have a question about the
What?
about the parent group.
Uh-huh.
I sort of feel like stuff in class asking for you to get a review sheet or a review concept. And he said that like we have a cheat sheet, so it should be fine. But I was wondering if like we could get an example like exam from the past. I don't know if you're repeating the same questions. But something to help with the parents. I'm just a little wrong with just preparing a cheat sheet of all the information that is small as well as the data.
So basically it will be structured mostly based on the core information of the lectures. That's what I would say. And then the question format will be similar to problem solving. So that's what we think about preparing cheat sheets. And then not sure if I'm answering your question, but
I guess I'm probably so be still a little more. I don't know.
so yeah, so basically problem sets if you can like solve questions. So I would focus on what was added and stuff from that. And yeah, if that makes sense. I don't know how to
Nine. That's helpful.
Yeah, so just following up, the fact that you say you don't need a calculator, because I was imagining like a lot of times when I make changes like classes in the past, I would do like different equations and things like that you would use. I'm assuming in this case we would try to make it more like content based, more so like writing that like a squared times variance of x1 like those type of things.
Yeah. So you might need some questions. So if there is like some equations involved with opposite questions, I would definitely include them in the cheat sheet. Yeah, and then also more conceptual parts as well. So that's but then like the equations I would do is like what was used in the opposite questions.
Just to understand like how they work, but not necessarily to plug in numbers to them.
I would note the equation per se, but you have to, if you like really understand what's going on in the equation, it would make sense of that equation, right? And I would save space for like
I would spend more spaces on like summarizing equations and stuff like that because like making sense of things can be a little bit it's self-consuming. It's sort of very to understand the equation. That's me for I mean that's why how I understand. It can be different from most people. Oh, what? Don't be scared. It's gonna be fine. And my tip is to carefully review the answer keys. So if you don't really understand the phrases and the answer keys or stuff like that, then you can really definitely ask. Yeah, the answer keys are detailed, right? And then that's for a reason. So this is for your review, and if you read the answer keys, and then if you don't really understand it, then always ask about that. Good. So yeah. And then for the grading policy, I was told that I tend to grade the exams generously from last year's evaluation. So oh what?
Never change.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. Yeah. I mean, I try to grade the problems as generously as much as I can, but yeah, but I tend to grade the exams generously, so don't worry about that too much. And then there will be some sub questions within a general question that are related to each other. So I am bound to mark down the answer to a descending question if it is incorrect purely because of the incorrect answers in the descending question. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. But I'll make the penalty really small. So as long as you have coherent answer within that specific sub question, then I'll give you points as much as hard. Does that make sense? Any questions about the first nature? Good. Yeah. It's gonna be great. It's fine. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. Really. Like yeah, from last year's experience, I guess. So. All right. Okay. So let's review the last two lectures. Right. We covered independence, right? So there were three types of independence. And unrelatedness. Right? And then the first one is X and E are independent, and mean independence is this one, and covariance and X and E is 0. Right? So we covered these three types of independence, right? So what? So the first one is the weakest assumption, right? Weakest assumption. So they are
not linearly correlated. Right? But this is the mean of E given X is 0. And this is not correlated in any functional form whatsoever. So, what would be an example where this is satisfied, the third type is satisfied, but not the second type? What would be an example? Anyone?
Could you say question again? sir?
Oh, so what would be an example of when where this condition is satisfied but not this condition? Anyone?
Would that be like if the errors were distributed in a way that was not linear? For example, if it was a like a U-shaped distribution,
Mhm.
like the linear, it would be like 0 on average. But for the mean, it would depend on where you are on that line. So this is the linear.
Right. So for example, y x, and then if the error terms are if the error terms is in a curvy linear relationship with x, then you have satisfied the uncorrelatedness, but this mean independence is not satisfied. Meaning that if you run the regression of E on X, it means that there's 0 slope, right? But then, given specific X, for example, 3, the expected value of E might not be 0. Does that make sense? So in this case, uncorrelatedness is satisfied, but the mean independence is violated. Good. Any questions so far? Nope. All right. Okay. Yeah. Then how about then what about the second type of independence being satisfied but not the first type? When would what is an example of mean X and E being mean independent but not fully independent? Anyone? Doesn't come up? No? That's fine. Yeah, no. So let's say, let's say we have this regression line. It means that the relationship between E and X. Oops. Yeah. Good. In that case, for every specific X, the expected value of E or the average of E given specific X will always be 0 for all X levels. Does that make sense so far? No? Good? Alright, yeah. But then the variance of E given X will be different. So X goes higher, then the variance of E given X will be larger. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Good. So this is the 3 types of independence.
So is that an example where it's not fully,
Oh, what? Sorry.
it's not fully independent in that case?
Right. Yeah. So this
As
is
the X is increased, the variance.
E given X is different. So this is mean independent, but not fully. Right. So a lot of people just the reason why we're learning this is that so in regression model uncorrelatedness is assumed, but then there could be some violations of independence between X and E, and that could lead to a bias in OLS estimation and OLS estimate, OLS estimator, and the standard errors as well. So the point, I won't dive too deep in the sense of like how this is a violation. This leads to this causes the bias in OLS estimator, but it won't be asked in the exam. But just simply know that if uncorrelatedness is satisfied, but if these are violated, then OLS estimators can be biased as well. Good. Any questions? Nope.
So it's that first on the full independence, if that's violated, then the coefficients in the standard errors are biased, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And then we also covered a little bit about misspecification. So there are 3 sources of misspecification that we have learned so far. There is one more source, but we won't cover that at this point, and it'll be discussed in instrumental variables lecture. But so far we have 3. Okay. The first one is omitted variable bias. So let's say we have this one, all right? This tag. And if you run the regression of y on x1 only, while not controlling for x2, in this case, the regression looks like that, right? Meaning that they're just running the regression of y on x1 without controlling x2, right? Then expected value of beta 1 hat. I put the expected value because it can differ depending on the sample. Just to reflect the sampling error part, I added the expected operator, but this is not really important because yeah, it's always for the sample, so don't worry about too much about it. It can be beta 1 plus S21 is
beta 2. B2, sorry. Okay. So even though the total causal effect is B1, your regression coefficient won't be B1 exactly. All right? Good. So that's an omitted variable bias. Any questions?
If I missed that, so
Mhm.
the total effect is B1.
Yeah,
The omitted
total.
variable bias comes across the B1 at 0.
Yeah, this is omitted variable bias. Yep. Good. This is the total causal effect, right? And then this part is the omitted variable bias. And, but then, what if you include x2 in the equation model? To differentiate these two, and these two, let's put the time sign just to differentiate these two, beta 1 hat and beta 1 prime, the new beta 1 hat. Okay, this means the new beta 1 hat, not like special meaning. It does not have a special meaning. It's just a new beta 1 hat, beta 1 hat. Now that you controlled for x2, including in the regression model, like including x2 in the regression models means you're controlling for x2, right? Right. So in this case, this is controlled. Now this is B1. Good. Any questions? Nope. All right. Good. So, and then the second source is correct functional form for y and x. So it's basically about better reflecting the relationship between y and x. When, for example, there is a curvilinear relationship between age and wage, you should include higher order terms such as age squared as a variable in the regression model. Good. So if you don't include age squared in the regression model, the regression coefficient will be 0 in this case. Right? Because all the data look like that. But then the errors will, offset each other, right? Then the beta slope will be exactly 0 in this case. But if you include age squared variable, then it'll reflect this curvilinear relationship, including specifying the correct functional form for x, y, and x will be really in the graph. Okay. And the third form of misspecification is effect heterogeneity, right? So it can be really resolved with the interaction terms. So
I'll just say that at this point. So effect heterogeneity means that the causal effect of treatment on outcome can be different depending systematically across units, and it can be resolved with the this concern can be resolved with the introduction of interaction. So let me step back. So without the introduction of interaction variables, it can bias the total part. Meaning that so there is another concern of not accurately reflecting the say gender difference in the effect of education on wages, right? But also it can bias the causal effect when the sample happens to be without say women or that's what okay. So effect heterogeneity is an important concern in terms of causal difference, and this is should be paid attention to. So all of the forms are actually a form. They are all like forms of misspecification or omitted variable bias. So omitted variable bias has a narrower definition and a broader definition, and then the misspecification is basically the same as omitted variable bias in the broader definition. Good. And then the third bullet point really speaks to the resonates with the question about matching and covariance in the problem set 1. So the problem set 1 actually had a question about whether you should interpret the effects of covariance as causal effects, right, in the matching models. Right. The answer was no, right, if you remember it, because you are conditioning on covariance to get the total causal effect of treatment, right? You're not really interested in causal identification of covariance effects, right? So it means that your causal causal effect of interest is the primary concern here, and not the regression coefficients of covariance. You do not care about that. So so it means there is a phrase for that. So you're not really interested in causes of an outcome, but you're interested in outcome of a cause. So it means that you're really not interested in every variable that is out there to explain the variance of y, and then you're not trying to find every variable that is out there to explain y, but you are only interested in the causal identification of T to Y. Good? Does that make sense? Yep. All right. All right. So that was review of the last 2 lectures, and there are some flashcards for the midterm 1. This is I hope this helps with the writing of the cheat sheet. So if you want to read them, it could be helpful. And I'll let you read the flashcards on your own.
but I wanted to review for the midterm one. Oh, any questions about the last two lectures? Review? Nope. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
So in the business specification,
Uh-huh.
so the graphical that
Uh-huh.
of heterogeneous effect and only the variable something bias
Mhm.
should be safe.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry. So omni variable bias. Sorry. What was the question? Sorry.
So the graphic model,
Mhm.
I mean that of omitted variable
Uh-huh.
is exactly same to the bias of heterogeneous effect. In that.
In a way, because in the broader sense, omitted variable bias is like effect heterogeneity is an example of a subtype of omitted variable bias in the first place. So in the broader sense, yes. Yeah. And any questions? Any other questions? Nope. All right. Let's talk about DAGs for a little bit more. So the first issue is identifiability, right? Can you explain what identifiability is? Anyone?
Is it you're able to actually estimate the result?
Yes, exactly. So it's when the question here is the causal effect from P to Y identifiable, or whether you can get what you want. When it's what you want is causal effect. Okay. So the question here is related to the difference between total causal effect versus association. All right. Can you tell me the difference between total causal effect and association?
I think one is cause, it's like they're one element that seems to directly cause another versus one just having an association, like a correlation with one, or they change similarly at similar times. Like rather than having one like true cause.
Uh-huh. So the total, how total causal effects, like how would total causal effects be represented in a DAG?
It would be like X with an arrow directly away.
Oh, direct paths only, or?
Oh, right, that's not here. Because it's the ones, the total causal path would be like when you have, you like add up all the ones, all the arrows that go to the one, and then you have to all of them.
Okay.
Ones,
Uh-huh.
maybe. And then
So
you
what is the
have
difference between association and total
one considering all the variables that go into the contribution of the one that we're looking at.
causal effect?
I'm just nailing it.
Yeah. No, it's good. So yeah, that's a good answer. But oh, do you wanna?
About association.
Okay, yeah.
So if you want to estimate the causal effect of X on Y, if in the last example we just saw, there's other covariates that affect
Yes.
both X and Y.
Uh-huh.
Then if we don't control any those covariates,
Mhm.
the association between X and Y is not total causal.
Right. Then so how would associations be represented in a DAG?
what kind of paths will be representing associations?
Either non-direct or non-indirect paths
Mm-hmm.
from X to Y.
Okay. Okay. And did you have any?
Yeah, I was just
Oh,
gonna
sorry.
guess that, so like a total causal effect would be like temporarily all direct and indirect paths from the treatment to non-common open, and all the non-causal paths are closed. There's associations is how all the open paths, whether, just whether non-temporal or not.
Basically that. And then I just said that the total causal effect is all of the open paths are the ones up there for your direction. All the paths that are open content, right?
I think you guys are getting into the right direction, but what you're saying is causal identification, not the difference between total effect and association. So causal identification is achieved when associations or open paths are equated as causal path. So in a DAG, associations are represented as open paths, and independents are represented as closed paths. So forget about all the indirect, directs, and stuff like that. It's just open versus closed. This is causal paths, which means that you are flowing along with the directions of the arrows versus not. Good. So what is important here is that total causal effect is not subject to any like adjustments or anything, because it's the truth based on your theory that you are trying to achieve to identify, right? So this is the truth, okay? And this is the truth based on your theory, which can be different from how society really works. But based on your theory, this path is the theory, and this path is the truth. And it does not change depending on whether you control for a variable or something like that. It does not matter. The realm of total causal effects is not subject to controlling or adjustments at all, because it's the truth you're trying to achieve. All right? Yeah.
So for total causal effect, it's only concerned with the causal paths. It doesn't matter if they're open or closed.
Yes.
Okay.
So, oh no. So no is my answer. So causal versus non-causal is the total causal effects matter, and open versus closed is association matter. Good. And this part, open or closed, obviously can be subject to adjustments or control or conditioning.
So what you're saying is, in this like diagram,
Mhm.
the total causal effect is one.
Yes.
However, to identify E1, you have to control for X2 because otherwise it would be your estimate if I is not
Right. Yes. So without controlling X2, the association will not be at E1, right? The estimated association will not be at E1. Right? But if you control for X2,
then the only open path is this one only. So that's why associations is the strength of association is becomes same as the total causal effect, which we call causal identification. The condition, adjustment condition for causal identification is to open all the causal path and close all the non-causal path, but this is about causal identification. So they should meet at the realm of causal identification, but these two are two different concepts. Good? Any questions? Nope. Good. Yeah. Okay. And so coming back to the identifiability issue. Identifiability is about whether you can adjust some variables to achieve the causal identification or not, whether you can or not. That is the identifiability issue. Sometimes you cannot do that because of unobserved variables. But even if you observe all the relevant variables, you might not have that. But anyways. Good. Any questions? Nope. All right. And I want to also make sure to mention that path coefficients are not paths. So if you have this stag, causal paths will be ty, txy, right? But then some people answered when the question asks like, what are the causal paths in the stag, and then the answer should be this one, right? But some people answered this way in terms of path coefficients. This is a problematic way to answer the question, and why is that? Why is that?
Doesn't tell you the answer.
Oh, what?
It doesn't tell you the answer.
Yes, it doesn't show directionality of the arrows, right? It does not show the causal flow of the paths. So that's why it's a problematic way to answer the question.
Which means we don't figure out this is whether moderator or mediator.
Oh, I wouldn't use the moderator word because it's related to interactions. Mediator, that's what you want to use, right? So yeah, so basically without just A, B, C, you don't really know whether this is a non-causal path or a causal path by looking at the coefficients per se.
What is the question here?
So basically, if the question was about what are the causal path in the stag, then you should answer in the path terms, not the coefficient terms. Because that was what the question asked. And it does not show direction of the arrows. These coefficients do not show the direction of the arrows. And that's why it's a problematic way to answer the question. Okay?
And so if the question is total causal, what's the total causal?
If the question was what are the causal paths, then you should answer it this way. Then what, like, if the, and that's my next point. If question says, rights using rights path rules. What is the estimated effect here? What is the what is the total causal effect here? Then you should be able to answer in coefficient terms. Okay. So rights path rules is the specific device that allows you to quantify the total causal effect. Like it's a device to transform these causal paths into coefficients. Okay. And oops. All right. Let's. Oh, I was gonna give you an example of a DAG, but before that, let's take 5 and then come back to 6.
Breathing. It's gonna be pretty chill. Indeed. I'm telling you one day. Well, you can't call it a day. This should be good. It's
Yeah, today. Anytime.
Yeah.
No, so basically, so total causal effect doesn't change regardless of whether control force. That is my answer. But the association or open paths can change depending on whether you control for some variable or not.
You checked it? No.
Yeah, but then after you change it, the control for the association is this. And total causal effect does not vary.
Wish I could have been there.
Control for something. Or try to change. So the truth is like the DAG, and then that determines what is total causal effect. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Sit down.
Wait, I need to see this. I don't have Twitter.
I don't I actually am. Okay. I didn't comment. No, it's like that. No, it's First of all, let's stop saying that freshmen are not real jobs, because I said and yes. Are you sure, right? What did you?
Just process like how what it perhaps conveys about how it's.
You continue to sit that way.
Very.
Yes, that's
All right. All right, let's start again. Yep. The question here is the total causal effect from what x, y identified? Where all right. Can you see that? Yeah. So, to see that, let's look at the total causal effect first, right? So the total causal paths here from x to y is x c1 to y. And non-causal paths is x c1 c2 c3 y x c1 u1 c3 y. By the way, u is not observed. So, Can you do you see why this is a causal path and they are non-causal paths, right? So they are going along with the flow of the causal directions, whereas they don't have that in their paths, right? It goes against the directions of the arrows, right? So that's why the total causal effect is AG, because the path coefficient is A and G. Right? Good. Any questions? Nope. Did you?
What do you forget if there's more than just like if there's more causal path than just A and G, like if there's other ones?
Oh, then AG plus something something plus something. So you're just aggregating all the numbers from each path. The summing of
So causal paths are about going with the flow of time, and non-causal paths are where there's flow against.
Right.
Yes.
Are you guys done with the writings? No. All right. I'll give you time. Good. All good? Yeah. I'll erase it. Yeah. Yep. Okay. And then associations, for example, between X and Y upon no adjustments. Notice that I added this condition specifically with the association. So when we talked about total causal effects, we did not add any adjustment conditions, right? So total causal effects does not vary depending on whether you control for some variables or not, right? Again. Question? Oh. Good. But associations can be calculated specifically when you set up some sort of variables that you want to control for. Good. So nothing is controlled. Open paths is X, C1, and Y. Enclosed path is X, C1, C2, Z3, Y, X, C1, U1, Z3, Y. This is an open path, right? And they are closed paths because
Z1 is a collider.
oh wait,
Z1 is a collider.
yes. In this path, Z1 is a collider, and for this one as well, Z1 is a collider. Right? Does that make sense? Questions?
The bottom line would be asked a question about causal effect, only care about the direction of arrows and not whether or not they
Oh, what?
connect. So we're being asked about causal effect. We're only concerned with directionality, not whether or not it's correct.
So in the realm of associations, are open versus closed are only.
And in the realm of causal effect, we don't care about direction.
And so they are closed paths, right? Because of the collider. So on an important side note, let me talk about colliders a little more. This is a very crude way of understanding colliders, and I'm not sure how Felix will feel about that, but what the hell else. So basically, let's say there is a collider between A and B. Okay, so it can be noted as C equals 0.A plus 0.5 A plus 0.5 B. Okay, so you are not controlling for it, which means that you're not fixing C into a number, right? So it means that without any real associations between A and B, you cannot figure out what the B will be based on A. Good? So yeah, so without fixing C to a number, you cannot really figure out what B will be based on A. Good? But, which means independence between A and B. So, when it's associated, you can figure out you can guess what B would be based on A and vice versa, right? That's what association means, right? But if you control for C, which is fixing C to a number, let's say 0, whatever the number is, the number per se is not important. Whatever the number is, you can now figure out B based on A. So that is represented as an association A and B between A and B when C is controlled. Does that make sense? This is how I make sense of colliders, but yeah. Good. Any questions?
So just to clarify,
Uh-huh.
we have that deck that you set up, and the question was, what's the association between A and B? There's no comment on there. It doesn't say they're adjusting. You would say there's no association between A and B.
Yeah, so when C is not controlled.
Okay.
Yeah, so A and B are independent when C is not controlled, and A and B are associated when C is controlled.
So is there any like a coefficients, or like an association coefficient? So we add
Sure.
all those
So
together?
basically, when C, and then let's say this is AB. If you control for C, you have negative AB as the covariance between A and B. Good.
How do I use this concept to your example?
I'll cover it in a minute. Yeah. We are not controlling anything, right? So there's A and B are independent in this case, right? Which is equivalent to saying X and Z2 are independent. So this is a closed path. Good. So open paths, associations from open paths happens to be AG, which is exactly same as total causal effect. So in this case, total causal effect, the total causal effect of interest is identified. So to answer the question of is the total causal effect from X to Y identifiable? And we can say yes, because there is at least one set of variables that can be adjusted for the causal identification to be possible. That makes the total effect identifiable. So in this case, 9 would be the set of variables that should be adjusted for the causal identification. All right. So what an implication of this stat is actually that you really don't want to control for. So I'll make sure to mention an implication in a minute. Maybe I'm just getting a little bit ahead of myself, but let's talk about associations. Association between X and Y upon the adjustment of X Z1 and Z2. Okay. So now Z1 and Z2 are controlled. Okay. So open path. So now right, because you are controlling for collider Z1 and you have the association between X and U1 and you are controlling for collider Z1 in this path, you are having an association between Z and X and Z2. Knowing that, let's talk about open paths. X, Z1, controlled U, Z3, Y. This is an open path now because you control it for a collider in Z, U, X3, Y is a collider. Is a yeah.
Did you add the dotted lines like between Z and U and X and U and X and Z2?
Yes, because in this path, in this specific path, Z1 is a collider in this path, right? And then that leads to the association between X and U.
Okay, so if you adjust on something that is a collider, then you get this imaginary but less imaginary dotted line.
Right, association, yes, yeah. In closed path, that's our X, Z1, Z2, Z3, Y.
And I'll explain that in a minute. All right. So this is pretty straightforward, right? X1, X, Z1 to Y. This is now closed because Z1 is fixed to a number. Right? So you cannot guess Z1 from X, right? Because Z1 is now fixed to a number, right? And then no matter what, no matter how X is changed, you cannot figure out how Z1 would vary because it does not vary. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I have a question about this in general. When you are conditioning on one of these variables, is it like saying that you're doing an analysis net of that variable?
Yeah, net of that variable, like exactly like you are controlling for some variable in the regression model.
So then once you control for that kind of thing, you're essentially taking it out of its relationship between the two variables.
Right. Yeah, you're conditioning on this variable basically.
That was a light bulb moment.
Oh yeah.
That's me. Thank you, Ruby. Just checking.
Good. Yeah.
Can you just explain that first one?
Yeah, I was gonna explain
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah. So, just make sure before covering the first closed track. So this meaning, the meaning of this second closed track means that now that you control for Z1 or fix Z1 to a number, right? Then you cannot figure out what Z1 would be based on X, meaning that they are independent. So that's why it's closed. Does that make sense? Yeah, good. And I'll explain the first closed path. So now Z1 is controlled, right? And there is a relationship, association between X and Z2 now, right? If Z2 were not controlled, then it would have been an open path, right? But Z2 is also fixed to a number. Good. Does that make sense? So that means that you cannot, like, there is supposed to be an association between X and Z2, but now Z2 is also fixed to a number. So you cannot figure out what Z2 would be based on X, which means independence. Precisely because Z2 is a number now. Good. So that's why it's a closed loop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Any questions? Nope. All right. Awesome. So in this case, open paths. So this is negative AB, right? Negative AB, CF will be association amount, the strength of association. So if you run the regression of Y of X while controlling for Z1 and Z2, the beta coefficient will be, so let me take a step back. The association between X and Y upon the adjustment here is noted as covariance between YX given XZ, X1 and XZ are, so Z1 and Z2 are controlled. The covariance here will be exactly this one. Does that make sense? Yeah, good. And then so which means that this was not a question, right? It means that PCE is not identified by the adjustment of Z1 and Z2. Total causal effect is not identified by the adjustment of Z1 and Z2 because the total causal effect is AG. Good? Yeah, all right, awesome. But then for beta coefficient, for regression model, if you run the regression of Y on X while controlling for Z1 and Z2, you would have like X or this one right here, covariance between Y and X given Z1 and Z2, right? So reminder, sorry, beta coefficient OLS is a beta coefficient in OLS regression is covariance between X and Y divided by variance of Y without when you don't control for anything, right? So this is simply covariance divided by variance of X. Beta coefficients are always calculated that way. So this is covariance between Y and X controlling for Z2, Z1 and Z2, right? And then variance of X minus so this is the supposed to be the variance of X, right? But then variance of X is right here, right? So we don't, right? Does that make sense? And it's subtracted by this number, which means covariance between X and Z1 and Z2. Meaning that you are partialing out variance of X with the association of between X1 and Z1 and Z2. Meaning that if you remember how linear controlling works, the first task was one of the tasks was you regress X based on Z1 and Z2 control variables, right? You remember that? Yeah. Okay. So you are partialing out variance of X with the correlation between X and covariance between X and Z1 and Z2. So that's, yeah, that's what's good.
Will this be on the exam?
Oh, so the exam won't be that hard. But
I'm not recognizing this.
okay, yeah.
Part.
This is in the slide.
Right. This is so the if you can solve a problem set questions, then yeah, you would. So the intuitions are same with the problem set questions about the you have the low birth weight question, right, in the problem set, right, in the path model problem set. But it's related to that. The insight is basically the same. The insight, if you can solve the question without too much problem, then you will be able to answer this question as well. So yeah.
the one you wrote there is a bivariate or the multiple regression.
This one?
The
Oh,
red-
this
the-
one is basically just like correlation between
upper one.
upper one.
Yeah, on the
This is exactly the same as this one. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that a multiple regression or the bivariate?
bivariate, bivariable regression.
Also, X and Y are.
It's not controlled. Yeah.
I mean, X and Y, there
Yeah.
are vectors or metrics.
No, you don't need a matrix for bivariate regressions.
Oh,
Yeah, you can use it, but you don't really need it. Yeah. All right. The last part was a little bit hard, but if you have any questions, I'm able to answer the question. And then so in the exam, I can't say like whether this is gonna be on the exam or not, but my recommendation is you should be able to answer the problem set questions correctly, and that's all that matters. And then as long as you can answer the questions correctly, then you won't have too much problem with the exam. So that's my recommendation.
I just have a question on notation. So
Oh,
when
what?
it says like Y, X, R, parentheses, Z1, Z2,
this
is that
is,
basically saying different X, Y,
using on the same.
while ignoring Z1?
So we're doing-
So yeah, so basically variance was amount of distribution
Like under the.
when you control forces in the two.
So by controlling, you have to go through the next.
Right, because of like you're controlling for it, right? So that's square here, right? And then the covariance now the sphere is
So why is it total Why isn't the total complement identified?
Oh, so first of all, total causal effect is AG, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then this spheres relationship is actually same as this one. There's the same notation. So it's obviously it's not a causal path, right? So that's why. Yeah. Mhm. Any questions? So about the beta coefficient again, if you there's in the calculation of beta coefficient, I think you need to understand how the variance is calculated when other variables are controlled for. The problem set about the low birth weight actually covers that. So if you can read through like the logic of it, and then if you can answer the question correctly, then you're fine. But if you have any questions about that, you should definitely let me know. Good. Does that answer your question, Mom? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, matrix algebra. So I can't say too much about it, but there's less meaning that the applied calculations won't be involved. But the equations can be helpful in the answering of the questions, because it can be really it really tells you how it really that if that
Yeah, so just to clarify what we had on the board earlier, was calculating that coefficient would be after you sort of control for variables. So what I'm seeing is that, so on the top is that covariance term that we calculate, like taking into account variances and everything. But then on the bottom, when we calculate the variance, because it's b, we're regressing y on x, that's why we partially have the relationship between those two c's. X is because we're trying to isolate that relationship between y and x. And that's why we're subtracting it. Just like making sure.
Right. So covariance XY is pretty it's pretty it was given, right? And then the denominator part is confusing, right? So the variance is supposed to be variance of x when nothing is controlled. Right? But the variance of x is now partialed out a little bit by the association between x and the control variables. Because z variables are now taking away some of the associations or variations of x. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, good. So now,
I have a question.
before going over that, OLS coefficient when there are control variables, then you regress of x on z, and then you have e's, right, from that x. From that regression, right, you would have that variable. And then you are using this variable as the new x variable. Good? Yeah. So that's why variance of ex is not necessarily x, because a lot of variations of x are partialed out by z's. Good. Oh, did you have any questions?
Yeah, because you just show us how to calculate a beta coefficient, but you haven't write up the denominator part. The numerator part is this one, right?
Uh-huh.
How do
Oh,
you
it'll be given in the exam questions, but
So
we
according to
by just looking at that we don't know that, right?
so we cannot express this
Right, in the numerical terms, right?
by A, B, C, D,
Yeah, no.
What about here? Can we calculate a beta coefficient in this situation as a AG
Mhm.
divided by something just by using the
Oh,
formula?
no, so basically, so in this case, so when the question was covariance between y and x was AG, right? Which identifies the total causal effect. But then what would be beta yx, right? It would be covariance between y and x divided by variance of x, right? So this is AG, but we don't know that for sure. We don't have that information, right? If x is standardized, then it would be 1. Then it would be AG. But without the information given, you wouldn't know beta coefficient. But the exam question will be giving you that information if you need to use that. Yep.
So the path coefficient in the right path rule is not necessarily equal to the beta coefficient.
Right. Path coefficients, the association, the strength of associations or Wright's path rules, all of that concerns the covariance only, not the beta coefficients. The beta coefficients merely divided by variance of x. That's it. but they are different in that sense. Yeah.
And how do we calculate the covariance between X and a net of Z1 and Z2?
Oh, that is just like you run the regression of X on X regression of X on Z1 and Z2, and then you get the coefficient, right? And that is
I mean, the calculation of covariance.
uh-huh.
I know the covariance between X and Y.
Uh-huh.
This is like that. N minus 1 over something like that. So I'm not sure how X between X and net of Z1 and Z2.
So what your question was this one?
So
Covariance
just
between Oh,
without Y.
this one? Is that what you're
Yes.
Okay, sure. So basically, you run the regression of X, Z1 and Z2, right? And then you would have E1, EX as the new variable, as a residual variable. And then you calculate the variance of that variable. And then you have that.
Is there any like formulas?
It's exactly same as oh sorry. Yeah. It's exactly same as that. Yeah. X and all right. Any questions? Oh, I should have. Yeah, I want to emphasize that this is using that. You know that formula, right? Then somehow, variance of y is variance of beta 0, beta 1, beta 2, x2, e, right? And then it's the same thing as beta 1 squared, variance of x1, beta squared, variance of x2, variance of e, 2 multiplied by beta 1, beta 2, covariance of x1 and x2, 2 beta 1, x2, and e. So sure you know that, but these two are assumed to be 0. So that way, variance of y is beta 1, 2 squared, variance of x1, beta 2 squared, variance of x2, and variance of e, and some number multiplied by covariance x1 and x2. Yeah.
the one where the square terms disappear. So it's just sort of like, there is another formula that's like variance of y of variance of e. I'm assuming the difference is they don't have there's a formula
Oh.
that's almost the same.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't have the a, which is like what a variance.
So in the case of variance of y hat plus e, I'm assuming y hat plus e. Right? They have the coefficient of 1. In that case, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're standard.
No, it's just beta, just y hat means 1 multiplied by multiplied by. It's not really related to the other relation, but y hat equals 1 multiplied by y hat. Right? Well, so for that case, so
So variance of y is actually same as variance of y hat and plus e, right? Yeah, and then this is same as variance of 1 y hat plus 1 e. 1 multiplied by y hat and 1 multiplied by e. Does that make sense? Yeah, can you show me that like formula late? Yeah, after class, if that's okay. Yeah. Yep. So it means basically that you are decomposing variance of y, raw variance of y, into the explained parts of the variance and unexplained parts of the variance of y, which is noted as variance of e in this case. Okay. I think in the problem set 3, like a lot of or 4 or 3, a lot of people answered variance of beta 1 hat, beta 1 2. I think I don't know. I don't know exactly. I don't exactly remember that. Somehow it was translated as this one. This is not the right use of formula, right? This should be variance of beta 1 hat plus variance of beta 1, beta 2 hat negative 2 covariance between beta 1 hat and beta 2. Because it is just a random variable. That per se beta 1 hat is a random variable per se. So there is no x1 involved in this case, right? You are just like treating beta 1 hat as if it's just x. There are another random variable anyways. So there is no need to, include x1 or something like that. It's just that simple. All right.
And then lastly, I want to mention that one, its relation to regression. So, X is a design matrix, X11, X1K, Xn1, Xnk, etc. etc. So there are n sample, n units, and then there are k variables, right? Therefore, X transpose is X1, X1K, Xn1, Xnk. Good. You are just transposing the matrix, and that's it. Good. Did you write that down?
Is it X, Kn rather than K?
Oh,
The last part, X,
uh-huh.
K and K is right,
Yeah. Thank you.
not X, K, and
Oh, yeah, but so by that, what I mean is, I don't know how to explain it, but it's so this is Xn1, right? And then this was transposed, right? So that's why. But then, like, of course, it's first row and nth column for this element. But then I wanted to show that this is same as this one. Same number, yeah. So it's supposed to be, if you put it as A, if you define X transpose A, then it would be A and A1N.
I mean the last part, X and K.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure X and K is right.
So the
X, K, then
XKN will be the A's element, right? But I just wanted to emphasize that this is the same, yeah. So if you define A as the transpose of X, then you would have the element of A is K. Yes. Does that? Yeah. All right. So if you do that, then X transpose X is X11, X1N, N1, X NK, 1K, right? Then you would have xi1 squared in sum of them. Because x1, you are multiplying x11 and x1, right? And then you are multiplying x12 and x12. x13, x13, etc., etc. And xn1 and xn1. Good. So it means you are squaring all of the x1 and x2, etc., all the observations within that variable and then square. When the sample mean is set to 0 or centered, it means it's n minus 1 multiplied by variance of x1. Does that make sense?
I think that's x21.
Huh?
x11, x21.
So it's a
Is it
oh 2 1. Sorry.
Transpose of x.
Yeah. Sorry.
So that's
I1. Sorry. Good. And then by that same logic, you have n1, n minus 1 multiplied by variance of x2, etc., etc. And then if you do that same procedure, you will find that n1 covariance x1 and x2. And then this is n1 covariance between x1 and xk. Does that make sense? So it's same as n minus 1 covariance matrix of x variables.